Welcome back to my podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of real estate, leadership, and building powerful partnerships that move businesses forward. I'm your host, Scott Kumler, and today we've got a very special guest joining us. Today I'm super excited to have Garth Ward as the guest. Garth went from top producing agent to opening his own brokerage within 4 years with 4 office locations. In today's podcast, Garth will talk about what he did to continually grow his business and the roadmap that led him from top producer to broker owner to closing all down to join EXP. If today's episode sparks ideas for you and you're an agent who wants to explore bigger opportunities, we'd love to connect. If you're interested in learning what a partnership with me and Garth looks like, either call or text me at 623-387-2688 or set up a Zoom meeting with my calendar link below. Also, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button to see more amazing podcasts like this in the future. Now let's get started. What's up, everyone? Scott Kumler here. I'm here with an amazing guest. Super excited to have him on. Welcome, Garth Ward, to the podcast.
Hey guys, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to get into everything and hopefully give some people some value.
Awesome, man. Well, as always, on most of these podcasts, I'm always kind of curious on kind of like your backstory, what got you into real estate, what you did before real estate. So okay, if you can kind of like rewind the clock, just kind of tell us a little bit more about you, what you did before real estate, and then what got you into real estate to begin with.
Yeah, I will do the short version because the long version would take forever and people would start falling asleep. The short version is I wanted to play professional soccer. I ended up turning that down when I was older. Um, I knew I was going to get into the business when I was 12 after thinking I was going to sell luxury exotic cars, realizing that wasn't the life that I wanted. Then I wanted to sell tanks and missiles and military equipment, realized that I didn't have the political connections to do that. And then I was going to spend the last year of trick or treating, and I realized that I had a propensity to really care about housing and values and things like that when I sat down and I pulled up the entire GIS public database of Federal Way. And I took the just under 24,000 houses, subcategorized them between values and assessed values and lot widths to determine the most effective route that I could walk for the most amount of candy, assuming that the prices to the assessed valued homes were correlative to quality candy. And I realized, hey, maybe I should just do like houses. That's kind of big. Of course, I was 12. I didn't know what that exactly entailed. And I looked it up and I saw, oh, wow, I could be rich. I'll make $45,000 a year. And to me, I thought that was rich. I grew up as a foster kid, and then I slept on a couch my entire life until I worked 5 jobs at the same time while going to college because I got grant money to go. I never went to classes. I only did classes that required testing only. And so I could get all these grants so I could buy a car. So I took a bus, took a bike to 5 different jobs while going to full-time college, passed that effectively, quit all my jobs at the same time at 19 years old, went all into real estate. 45 days later, I ended up closing or getting my first deal. Um, and then a year and a half later, I was a homeowner. And so, yeah, that's the beginning.
Nice, awesome. That's an amazing story. I love how much work you kind of put into it. I love the mindset with the Halloween candy as well too. That's pretty crazy. So it's kind of shows your mindset. Even at an early age. So kind of we'll get into it a little bit later. Kind of what you're doing today. But kind of take me through the early stages of when you first got into real estate because a lot of times people get agents get their license. And then, they're like, okay, what now? What do I do? They aren't giving any guidance. So, when you first became a real estate agent, what was some of the activities that you did to start getting some business, in the early days?
I wish I was a little bit more efficient in the beginning as well. And like I tell everybody, get a mentor. I had one, not necessarily one that helped me prospect, just one that helped me through my first deals when I got them. And I sat down and I asked, what are all of the prospecting things that I can do to grow business? And I asked every producer in the office, and they kept telling me, talk to your sphere of influence. That's a good source of business. I'm sitting here at 19. All my friends don't have money, don't have houses, and I don't know anybody with money. So I'm sitting here thinking, what do I do? I'm grasping at straws. What's the ways that I can do it? And I have no money to do ads. I have no money to do marketing. What's my availability? So I sat down and my entire plan was do open houses, do cold calls, canceled, expireds, for sale by owners, and then door knocking. That was it. That was the entire plan, and it ended up being my first listing, which was my first transaction in Tacoma, and that was from an expired call. And it speaks to the fact that you don't have to have perfect scripts or a perfect process. I literally picked up the phone. I said, "Hey, I saw you were trying to sell your home off of Mason Avenue." And she goes, "Yeah." I was like, "It didn't sell. Are you still wanting to sell it?" She goes, "Yeah." I was like, "I could sell it for you and actually close it this time. When would that, is that something that you want?" And it was totally unpolished, totally bad, everything. And she was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, would you want to meet me there?" And I was like, yeah, sure. Would you be able to meet me there today?" And she goes, "Yeah." And then I go there and done listing. Um, but it's the act of putting in the reps. Even if you're bad at this business, if you put in the right reps and the right amount of prospecting, there's no way that you ultimately will fail. And so that's what I was doing. And, that was 45 days of literally be like sleeping in the office. It got to the point where a managing broker would actually came to me and said, "Hey, if you're going to be here on a weekend and it's 4 or 5 a.m., please turn on the lights." Because I had an agent come here, they were trying to get some signs or something like that, and they got scared because you were sitting here working in the dark. Um, but that's the difference between somebody that really wants it and somebody that says they want it and don't have any inputs to correlate to the outputs that they want.
Yeah, I love that because and especially when you talk about like like your mentor told you just to call your sphere. I feel like I talk to a lot of real estate agents, doing what I do, and everything like that. And so a lot of times I feel like when I'm talking to a new agent, that's what almost every brokerage says. Hey, just talk to your sphere, right? Most brokerages, what they do is they just recruit a bunch of agents because they hoping those agents have friends and family that one day will purchase a home, and then that's how they'll go ahead and get some more transactions. But not a lot of teams or not a lot of brokerages actually give people tangible ideas on what to go out there and get their business because especially as a new agent, you have to go out there and hunt for your business. You can't just expect the business to come to you. And yeah, it's good you have friends and family and stuff like that, but you have to go out there and find it as well too. So, what was your, I find that typically the thing that most agents struggle with is being their own boss, and they have to kind of treat it like, like they create their own schedule. So, you obviously were doing a lot of activities, with open houses, cold calling, stuff like that. But what type of schedule did you kind of create for yourself to maintain that consistency, as a brand new agent?
I'm going to say something that's kind of unpopular, but I had no balance. I had zero life balance. I just worked if I was awake, and that was it. If I didn't have deals, which was the entirety of the beginning of my business, my entire and sole focus was finding a potential client, and that's it. That was my entire life for almost 2 months to make sure that I could find one. From there, I tried to optimize it, but that was it. Like, I wish it was a sexier answer, but that was literally it. How do I do this? I'm just going to go all day, 24/7 until I make it happen. Because I burned the bridges. I had no other jobs. I was going to be homeless if I didn't sell a house within, what was it, like 3 or 4 months at that point. So I was like, I have to make something work. And from there it was, how do I optimize it? How do I get more efficient at it? And yes, I started, with that closing, I bought a bed so I could sleep better and at home. But I it was it's it then became, what am I converting best at? Very quickly, it became, great. I can get clients this way or this way or this way. Probably like 6 months in, I was like, I got a client here, 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 here. Which way is the commonality? And then I leaned heavily into that, which for me was open houses. And then I started split testing the best ways to do that. And then that's how I ended up stumbling upon long term how to do my 8 open house strategy, which, I don't know if you know this, but I actually, when I built my entire business in Washington State, I moved across the country to Tennessee, restarted a sales business from scratch with no friends, no family, no connections, no understanding of the neighborhoods, market, or anything. Did that 15 months ago, and I've already closed over 60 transactions in this market center, rebuilding the exact way that I tell agents to grow. And that's building a foundation of properly done, strategically held open houses, cold calling during the week, building a foundation of geographically relevant social media data, and leaning heavily into a properly built brand and online mechanisms that will be pay at close transaction centers. That's all I did to start here, and now I'm already one of the top brokers in all of the Memphis area. So anybody
That's
can do it.
That's great, and even with I was telling you, I talk to a lot of agents, and that's the other thing I hear a lot, a lot of excuses where it's like, well, I just moved to the specific like location, I moved to this city, I've never lived here before, and Obviously that's an example of how, your excuses really don't matter. I mean, you can move someplace else as a brand new agent, and there's tons and tons of success stories out there where agents have done the exact same thing, where they've moved to another city, didn't know anyone, and was able to build up their business, even if they don't have the most sphere, in that location. So,
Mhm.
now I know, after you became a highly successful agent as far as production, then you eventually started growing a brokerage, and you actually opened up a brokerage. So kind of take me through that journey. What made you decide at the time when you decided to build a brokerage or open a new brokerage up? What went into that kind of strategy and what went into that thinking? And then kind of take me through those early stages as a brand new broker as well.
Yeah, I didn't get into this business thinking I would run a brokerage. That was never the plan. But when I was at my first brokerage, I quickly became the top agent. It was like my second year, somewhere between my second and third year, I became the top agent at that brokerage, and it was a large regional firm, and they were asking me to join their um, their corporate team and all sorts of stuff. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I'm 21 years old. I shouldn't be asked to do anything. I shouldn't be the number one in anything. That's a problem. And then, kind of when I was getting that uneasy feeling, I got headhunted to a luxury firm that was being built. I said yes because it was the top six of the top 10 agents in the entire state coming together to make a company. And I said, yeah, I would love to learn from you guys. You're the ones that sell everything over $5 million. And they wanted me. So I was like, yes, I would love to learn from you because I've never sold anything expensive. I don't know how to brand myself as well as I would like to. And I would love to increase my price points. And in turn, you guys can use some of my youth and exuberance. So, anyways, that's kind of what ended up happening there. And so I helped them grow that company a little bit. And I just by my presence. And then I ended up falling into creating a team because I got into a lot of new construction. And at one point, I had, 80 new construction listings that were, 650 to $900,000 or so. Um, and I had all these people wanting to join my team. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, cool. I'm building this team that I never thought I would want to build. And then I got into conversations with them about potentially franchising out that company, which had become one of the top companies in all of Washington. And then it went dark and they asked for potential errors and omissions claims by everybody. And I was like, that's weird. They're probably getting a valuation. We've grown it pretty big. It's probably worth some decent sum of money now. Um, Especially at the time when brokerages were worth more money. And so I sat back and I said, I think they're going to sell. What do I want to do now? And I have these agents that want to join my team. They're not joining for the company, they're joining for me. And right alongside that, I ended up having my marquee sale of my career, which is $21.7 million. And I sat back and I said, wow, what am I going to do with this money? What if I just cash funded a brokerage? And, if people want to join with me, they can join with me. I can have full reign, full control, build it out properly. And I can't find anything that I think is a better vehicle to be in forever. So I'm going to build it. If I don't see it, I'll build it. Right. So that's what I figured. So I started up the company August 1st. A couple weeks in, I already had 12 agents. Probably 6 months in, I still had a broom closet. It was 80 square feet, no windows, walk up through a back alley with a dumpster. All of a sudden, I had 30 agents or something like that. I had to get a big office space, kept expanding, kept expanding. At the end of it, I had four offices, 137 agents, managers in each location, CEO, admins, front desk people, the whole nine yards, software, CRM platforms being developed, websites that we built and developed and coded. It was all of the things that you would attribute, but also all of the legal problems. I got sued a couple times throughout the process. I've dealt with so many different things from that side of the world. But also my production took a massive hit. I went from the peak year of my sales, which was just right around $70 million in sales volume. And then I started my brokerage and then bam, went all the way down to like $20 million in sales volume. Because I spent all of my time pouring into the agents and pouring into their growth and pouring into them growing and building and me getting more agents and things like that. Because I thought there was a light at the end of that tunnel. And I wanted to play a bigger game. I'm a very competitive person. So I was like, if I'm already going to be one of the top salespeople, what if I became one of the top brokerage people? That's another game I can play because I'm competitive. And, that was the landscape I wanted to play in. But then I sat back and I realized, like, what am I really building this for? I wanted to impact the agents that wanted to join me as a team, and I wanted them to have the best possible outcomes. That was the only reason I did it. And I ultimately wanted to do the sales myself. And the only reason I really considered the brokerage was because I couldn't find a better option for everybody that was trusting me. And at the same time, I was looking for a potential out of the production business long term. And that's why I built the brokerage.
Nice. So, if someone's watching today that's thinking about building their own brokerage, because a lot of times, agents think that that's the natural progression, right? Where they get their license, this real estate agent, they have a few years of success, and they're like, okay, now I got to go ahead and open a brokerage next. So if there's one thing that you learned from opening your own brokerage that you would say is the most important thing you've learned, or the biggest mistake that you made opening a brokerage, what do you think that would be?
There's a lot there to unpack, but I'll try to keep it concise. One, do not open a brokerage if you can't hire a manager right in the beginning. A manager that isn't a friend, an actual manager that you're going to pay well to properly manage and grow and retain your agents. Do not be the manager yourself because you'll never pivot out of the management role, even if you hire managers and CEOs. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to charge enough. I'm going to tell you that now. When I started, I was charging 80-20 splits with $15,000 caps. By the end, I was charging 70-30 splits, $25,000 caps, $100 a month to be licensed at the company with $500 transaction fees, with a 2.25% servicing fee off the top of everything, even when you hit your cap. That change was a pure directive of what's required when you don't realize that you're going to have to add in expansion. Profitability today, because they close a deal and you make a little money, does not mean you can scale it to the way that the agents expect you to scale it. And because you don't have immediate scale, you have to charge more. And if you're thinking you're going to win on the price game, you will lose unless you're going to play one of those, I'll be the cheapest discount brokerages alive and get 1,000 agents. You will lose. And so start with hiring a manager. You have to lead with capital. As much as I don't like saying that, you have to if you really want to grow it. Um, don't think you're going to have a proper exit ever, because I did get offers to sell the brokerage that I turned down. I got a couple offers and they were 7-figure offers, but they were not good offers. Um, your brokerage is not worth what you produce. You take out your production, it's not relevant. If you're running leads and you're sending those leads to your team and you're taking a split from that and you're counting that as your brokerage numbers, those aren't real either. You have to look at just the brokerage split and transaction fee numbers, take out your liabilities, subtract those out. If you don't have a manager, subtract out the cost of a manager, then whatever's left, whatever that net is, and 99% of the time when I talk to brokerages, it's negative. But if it's not, if it's positive, whatever that is, times it by 3. That's what your brokerage is actually worth. And once that's at play, you realize nobody will pay you that. They will pay you 40% of that up front. And then they will give you an earnout period over the next 3 years. They'll give you that other 60% in like another 30%, 10%, 10% based on the retention and the consistent closings of those people. If people leave, you lose more of the money. If they grow and they build the brokerage more, you don't gain anything. So effectively, your sale is getting the money, best case, getting the money that you would have had just by keeping your brokerage for 3 more years. So there's really no exit strategy unless you can build to thousands of agents and you have some sort of brand cohesion with another really large player. Otherwise, there's really no true exit strategy for a brokerage. That being said, most brokerages, and I mean over 90% of them, never get to 10 agents. Less than 1% of them get to over 30 agents. And if you're talking about getting to 1,000 agents, you're talking about a 1 in 1,000 shot. So if you're the percent of a percent, then you might get to 100 agents. And I can personally tell you, because I got there, it's still not as profitable as just being a very productive sales agent. That's still not as profitable as that. And so it doesn't make sense unless you're in it to arbitrarily own the brokerage and you want to run a glorified team with like 5 agents. Otherwise, I would heavily dissuade it, because one lawsuit's going to run you $100,000. You can't defend yourself because you have to run it as a corporation, and you can't legally defend yourself as a person. When you're a corporation, you have to hire representatives. So all of a sudden a basic frivolous lawsuit for TCPA class action and runs you $100,000. And not to mention any of the NAR lawsuits, the commission dispute lawsuits, and everything else. And I'll give you one better. I haven't had that brokerage for 2.5 years. I just got hit with the Department of Licensing complaint from 4 years ago that I'm now compiling paperwork and data for one of the agents that were involved in the deal, not even named in the deal. I'm not even named in the deal, but the other agent in part of that transaction was named in the deal. So now I'm wrapped into extra work from 4 years ago. And so the amount of headache that you will have, you cannot comprehend.
So what I got from that is don't open your brokerage unless you're gonna go big at that point, you know. And it's crazy too, with especially with the NAR lawsuits that happen. I mean, how many brokerages now are getting gobbled up, you know? And it's just like, you know, the previous brokerage I was with, you know, after the NAR lawsuit, they got bought out and they called a merger, but you know, really they had one company that just bought them out, you know, and everything like that. So it's definitely. I definitely, that's one of the reasons I never wanted to get my broker's license because I know how much of a headache it would have been as well too. So you kind of mentioned it as far as like exiting the brokerage a couple years ago. I guess what prompted you know when you decided? Obviously, you know we're now partners over here at EXP at the Wolfpack, but you know what prompted you to exit the brokerage, and what kind of were those steps? I know you mentioned there's like no like perfect exit strategy, and it doesn't work out the way you're expecting it to most of the time. But what did that look like? What made you decide to exit out of it and eventually join you know EXP and the Wolfpack over here?
Well, initially it was expansion. Expansion was the thought. I was looking at expanding to thousands of agents. I got 137 in 4 years. Why can't I get thousands? Right. And so I started looking and delving into how I would do that, how I would place more locations, how I would get more offices, what the licensing requirements are of all of these things, how would they be done, which is also why I ended up in Tennessee in a random place in the suburbs of Greater Memphis, because this is where I was going to place an office location in my research. Anyways, the in that process, we identified it would be way too capital intensive to properly expand. We ended up getting offers randomly while delving into those specifics. We were like, wow, these offers are not attractive. That means if we grow it to what we think it will be, it still won't be worth what we want it to be. So, how do we expand and get rid of the liabilities, get rid of all the legal problems, get rid of all the compliance, but how do we still expand and impact the agents like was my original plan? At the same time, I ended up getting reached out to by Scott and Sean, who I used to work with at that really heavy hitting brokerage called Avenue. Doesn't exist anymore. It got purchased out by Compass. I was correct, by the way. Right when I launched my company, the next day they announced that sale. So I called it. Um, but anyways, that company did get absorbed. They got absorbed with it. So, but we had a working relationship because my office was right next to theirs. They said, "Hey, you should really delve into this thing that we're doing." And I was like, "What is it?" And they broke it down, and I was like, it's not really for me. This was a year before, by the way. I was like, that's not really for me. That next year, I'm delving into all these issues. I'm getting the offers. I'm looking at the expansion options and stuff like that. I said, you know what? Let's have a deeper conversation. Let's look at what this actually looks like. So we sat down, we ran the numbers, we ran the brokerage numbers, we ran the split numbers, we ran all of the projections, we ran the compensation model, the structures, all the different things. And I sat back and I said, wow, so you're telling me the actual net profitability of just growing an EXP organization is better than owning a brokerage with no liability connected to it and no geographic boundaries and no extra licensing requirements? Basically, the answer to that is yes. And I said, okay. And alongside that, I'm not the only one that has to get the agents. Like anybody who wants to get agents to partner with me can do that. And then that helps me too. Okay. What's the catch? Turns out no catch. That's just what it is. And so we made the choice to make the transition over. Now I have over 200 agents, and only 30 of them chose to join us initially from the brokerage because we were running a luxury boutique experience, and we said, "Hey, we're going to go to a different thing." And I wholeheartedly believe it's best for the agents. It's a better compensation. They would have had more money, better split, better resources, better tools, same branding, all the same things we were already offering them. But they turned it down anyways because of their negative understandings of what EXP was, just like mine was originally before I delved into everything. But anyways, rebuilt from 30 over 200 now in just a couple years. So I'm already growing at 5 times the rate that I was um, as running and owning a brokerage. And I have no liability connected to it at all. And it's just free flowing revenue cash flow at this point, which is absolutely insane when you think about it that way from a brokerage perspective. But I also didn't transfer it over as a team. Everybody said, transfer it over as a team, you'll make more money that way. And I was like, no, I am telling agents to come over here because it's the best fit for them. And I don't want to be extra compensated for that. I want it to be the best possible situation with them. So I will take the worst possible financial position that is even possible. And I purposefully chose that. Um, and a lot of people said I was wrong for that too. But here we are. And I feel like I'm doing a lot better than I was even when I owned the company.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. So if you could go back to your younger self, when you first got into real estate and, knowing what you know now after all the journey that you've taken, in the last, so many years since you've been licensed, what is the one piece of advice you'd give your younger self, knowing what you know today?
Now, is my younger self in real estate today or in real estate in 2013? That matters.
Well, let's say real estate today, because obviously, well, let's say we're talking to a new agent, right? That's looking at like to learn what they need to do when they first get into real estate. Like, what's the one thing you would give as far as advice to someone that's guess getting into real estate today in 2025?
I'll give a roadmap. I'm gonna get like if you're listening and you got to this point, you're gonna get the best roadmap of your entire life and just follow this. You're gonna be one of the most successful agents. I'm gonna give it right now. One, take 1 week, only 1 week, and never do it again. Read every single contract that exists in your market center. Done. Never read it again. Never deal with it again. Never deal with process ever again in your life. You understand it. Two, week two, you start implementing cold calling for 4 to 6 hours a day every single weekday. When you're done with that, you door knock for the next 2 hours every single weekday. Weekends, you're holding 4 open houses on a Saturday, 4 open houses on a Sunday. Follow my 8 open house strategy. If you don't know what that is, go to my YouTube channel, watch it. I have a lot of information about exactly how to do that, or you can ask for the free book in the comment section. We'll get you a free book on exactly how to do it. Now, you do my open house strategy. You get onto every single free lead source system that you pay for a referral fee when you close. Get on every single one that's possible. Update every single one of those contacts every single week regardless. Don't say that you've ever met them until you've met them and signed a listing agreement, then you've met them. Have high quality conversion metrics within these platforms because they run on algorithms. So you do that, and that. Alongside all of that, make sure you dial in a proper brand. Make sure that you have a quality online image that is easy to find. Handles should be easy to find. Your name should be easy to find. And you should have a distinct brand that never changes. That will never change. It is inked on my body. That took a long time to curate. Do not find a random stock image of a house and put your name next to it and call that a brand. It is not. You need to have a clear understanding of your values, your goal, your mission, your brand identity, the colors, the logos, the ideals of what you are building. From there, you build that proper social media platform. Alongside your proper media platform, you will start to get opportunities that are wider than you can handle. If you understand how to operate within the metrics and optimization of those platforms, you will need a vast network of people that you can properly capitalize on those opportunities with. And that's where partnering with us comes in. It's that simple. And find an organization of people that are happy to help coach you and mentor you from a position of understanding and vast track record of results. Do all of that combined, and there's no reason you shouldn't be able to close at least 3, 4 deals every single month, regardless of how long you've been in the industry.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, I love that. I love the roadmap as well too. So if anyone that is watching this podcast is looking at like seeing what a partnership opportunity looks like with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to Instagram at the Garth Ward. Go to my YouTube channel, Garth Ward at the Garth Ward. Super easy. Again, consistent. Or you can go to parkplace.us. If you go to parkplace.us, you'll even see a long form video of me explaining exactly what to do and how to do it and what we offer at the Wolfpack and Park Place, all the different things that you're going to have access to. And all the different training and tools and resources and compensation structure and everything. You can even book a call inside of that website. So totally up to you guys. But if you're delving into it, I can tell you, I've been around the block a billion times. You won't find a better culture. You won't find better assets, tools, and resources than you will within this organization. And if you want a free, no obligation, completely completely anonymous conversation, we will have that with you. And I understand the sensitivity of that being a past brokerage owner. If you are a team leader brokerage owner, feel free to schedule that call and know that nobody will be told, nobody will be contacted inside of your brokerage. People will not scatter because of a conversation with us. It will remain completely anonymous.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I love it. And just so you guys know too, I'll put all of his information in the description below this video, so that way you guys have that as well too, in case you want to reach out to Garth to see what that looks like. So, Garth, man, I appreciate you hopping on today. It's been a pleasure jamming out with you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, awesome. You guys have a great day.